To our universal philosophical tea, the White Tower. Today's topic is about Xenophanes. I'm going to start by presenting Xenophanes and a few information about him. He was born between 560 to 470 BC, and he was forced to move from Colophon, where he was staying in the city Minor, to the southwestern part of Italy, town called where the Eleatic school was founded. Now, during the 6th century BC, we should not forget that Minor Asia is under Persian enslavement, and that is a factor caused Greeks to immigrate to other parts of the Mediterranean basin. Now, Xenophanes is quite different in writing style. He prefers to write poems rather than prose, Plato did, or technical language, by Aristotle. Now, when it comes to poetry, you probably know already that Xenophanes was against Homer's poetry. And at that time, Homer's poetry was supposed to be one and only accepted means of formal education. Now, Xenophanes is not against poets, is not against poetry as such, as a means of expressing one's inner thoughts and beliefs, because he himself uses poetry to also express his theological concerns. But he's against Homer because Homer uses his poetry as a means of expressing divine element. That is, he talks about the multiplicity of gods, many gods, who resemble human beings and think the way they do, feel the way they do, act the way they do. So got this multiplicity of gods reflecting people's own deficiencies and a bunch of disadvantages of the human race, which boils down to lack of knowledge and ignorance. So in a way, poetry is used as an extrapolation of religious beliefs in the sense of anthropomorphic gods. Now, what about science? Xenophanes wants to prove that the Earth was once submerged by the sea. And in order to do this, he keeps a fossil record of sea creatures that he finds above land. And in such a way, tries to prove himself right and show that living organisms have been evolving through geological time. And also, there is this Greek goddess named Iris, a Greek goddess represented by rainbow, according to the Greek mythology. But Xenophanes says, no, she's not a Greek goddess, but it's just a natural phenomenon like a colorful cloud. So this was quite a revolutionized idea about how physical phenomena and the way also how human beings should think about the interpretation of natural phenomena by using more rationalization, the rational thinking, rather than the mythologized version of Homer as a poet. Now, when it comes to cosmology and the universe, he thinks that Earth is the fundamental principle of all things, like the overarching principle of all things. Earth as infinite, limitless, having no starting or ending point. So the sun cannot pass above it, cannot pass under it. The sun itself is not supposed to be a celestial body in the sky. but it's made up of sparks, like new sun rising in the east every day, a new sun setting west, or disappearing in the infinity Apiron every night. So in such a way, he tries to compare the multiplicity of days, multiplicity suns, as a way in his attempt to explain the interplay, the interchange between day and night. Quite a revolutionary idea of the time. Now, when it comes to sports, and that's the really interesting thing, Xenophanes as a whole is not in favor of this, the way Olympic Games were used at the time. Not that he was against athletes themselves, athletes as personalities trying to do their best to break a world record, trying to excel at their sport. Not in this way. Instead, he was wondering, like, how innocent are the Olympic Games? What kind of political or economic games are also played? What are these political and economic factors that are involved in this Olympic game spirit? Is the Olympic institution an institution as it should be, or is it being transformed, turned into a cheap spectacle of unconsciousness, leading to mass laziness and obfuscation and beautification of the lawless forces of power? And indeed, the game, according to Xenophanes, is wildly political in the broad sense of the city, and of course, economic, with the victims, on the one hand, being the athletes themselves, have identified sports, the poisonous sting of championships, and on the other hand, got this broad mass of citizens who are pretty much disillusioned and are looking for, in these dirty spaces, like the athletic arena, to regain their lost honor in relation to national ideas, patriotic sentiments, true progress, and self-realization in a way. So that's the way Xenophanes thinks about sports, generally speaking, which are being used from the rulers of his time as instruments. And of course, we've got the athletes who are given all the attention, and the real philosophers were totally neglected. And also there is this so-called coexistence between the athletes and their supporters. And there's again the question, why and how do athletes and fans coexist? Because it is a fact that athletes and fans are a patchwork of people, uneducated in large part, and therefore without having a developed, beyond the mechanism, reflective consciousness to help them. And we all know what the result is, according to Xenophanes himself. The result is that they're both parts, both athletes and fans, are manipulated by the incompetent Führer politicians. And politicians themselves seek their justification, of course, in the form of, let's say, celebrations in streets, when athletes win medals, or celebrations in courtyards, in parliaments, political buildings, and the rest. So, in a way, Xenophanes thinks that how are we going to deal with this? And the only way to deal with this is through true education. He's against, of course, formal education, which is directed to studies for their own sake, so as to get a degree, get a diploma, university diploma, or a master degree, or a PhD. They're all used as a means to an end. But what Xenophanes is interested in is true education through philosophical inquiries, philosophical communities, and thinking. As Heidegger points out, such a philosophical education is which historically grounds the people in their saying and encourages them to become guardians of the truth of being. Now, when it comes to religion, of course, once again, he's against Homer and Hesiod as the monopoly of the formal education of his time. And he does not exactly reject the multiplicity, the notion of multiplicity of gods. He leaves it as it is, but he says that if people want to have some sort of, let's say, if they want to find some sort of light at the end of the tunnel, they should not have this tendency to anthropomorphize their gods by attributing them all the human traits as if they wanted to justify their own mistakes and wrongdoings. They should not have this sort of thinking process by believing that their gods feel, move, breathe the way human beings do, or even walk, talk, act, react, and interact the way they do. But they should be thinking quite the opposite, like the gods do not like human beings at all, and should not have the same physical appearance, and should not share the same feelings. And that's the way he offers an alternative solution. He moves from polytheism to monotheism by saying that, you know what, there is one great supreme God with a capital G who does run everything, who does perceive and coordinate everything in the universe without effort, without being his little finger, without having to move himself from place to place, as people imagine. An almighty God staying in the same place, being present here, there, everywhere. So God's being as such is concluded in that he sees, thinks, and hears directly without the mediation of the senses. Now, all in all, Xenophanes' contribution to the universe we should remember that he attempts to do away with the old theological concerns, but he does not only stay on the negative side of the secular order, does not quite reject the old, let's say, process of thought, that is the multiplicity of gods, the Greek pantheon. But he proceeds a step further, and that's his main point. He presents another moral and religious code, a new code of conduct within the community of men, how men should think and behave among themselves. A new code, a behavioral code consisting of true piety, a simplicity in religious ceremonies, not something extravagant, not something luxurious. The human beings' behavioral code should include mutual respect, and human beings don't have to prove themselves right or wrong, but just do good deeds, noble deeds, and always engage themselves in virtuous actions, actions of the good. So as a result, he doubts about the validity of human knowledge. He just asks and keeps asking himself, how much can a human being know? And what way human beings should follow to get themselves to the truth. So there's a clear point here of Xenophanes, who says that, there are limits of human awareness, but what humans can do is that they can rationalize their own way of thinking about the natural phenomenon. Thanks a lot for listening. Do not forget to join our meetup community on the meetup platform, the White Tower, and do subscribe to our YouTube channel. And there are many quite interesting videos there. And you could also leave your precious comments, and we would be happy to answer back as soon as possible. Have a happy new year 2024 to all of you.